Our first speaker is Enrica Bruno, PhD at the University of Bologna, and doing a PhD project which is called a study of the concept of cross destinies. And the title of our talk is Literary Constraints and Combinatory Structures Towards a Semantic Model. Please, go ahead.
Thank you. Yes. Just in case of this. Perché in teoria aspetta. No, perché devi fare così, aspetta. Interrompi un attimo. Ok, torni qua. E vai. Dove cavolo sono? Qua. Però io, dove sono?
Ho scaricato un si chiama.
Ok.
Esatto.
Esatto. Non ce l'ho. Okay. Can you hear me? Yeah, I think yes. Good morning, everyone. Today I'm going to present my research project and yeah. I would like to start with 3 examples to introduce the topic. As you can see, in the first example, there is a rewriting of Dante Alighieri's Inferno, where the author decided to not use, so omit, the letter A from all the text. This phenomenon is called lipogram, and it is a linguistic constraint. The second image is somehow a poem that starts with 1 syllable and adds 1 syllable at a time, producing what it called boule de neige in French, or in English, snowball poem. This is a visual constraint. The third example is the opening of Il Castello dei Destini Incrociati, which is a collection of stories created using a tarot deck. These 3 examples are very different in characteristics, in how they are implemented in the text and transferred to the reader. But in common, they are writing under constraint, which belongs to a particularly literary movement, which is potential literature. That was born in 1960 in Paris from a French group, Oulipo, Ouvroir de Littérature Potentielle. The group aims to explore the potentialities of literature using constraints, not as limitation, but as a stimulation of creation. In this sense, Oulipo's writers said that a constraint is the strict and clearly definable rule, method, procedure, structure that generates every work that can properly be called Oulipian. The Italian counterpart, Oulipo, rephrased this definition, highlighting the procedural nature of the constraint. So, in the digital humanities and knowledge organization, there is no shared classification of literary constraints. When they are indexed, they appear as concept or genre, but never as procedure or structure. Thesauri and subject headings focus on bibliographic dimension and description, so most of the constraints are not even mentioned. And Wikidata and Wikipedia have broader coverage, but for example, the Wikipedia described the lipogram, the first example that I showed you before, as a kind of fish. Or, for example, other kinds of constraints are instances of class such as band, food, organization. For what concerns cultural heritage ontologies, of course, they are not described. With one exception of the genre ontology from the Canadian research, where the constraint is classified as poetic genre. This lack of formal description is the gap that my research tries to address. How? Through two research questions. The first one is, what is a literary constraint and which reference entities are required to describe them? The second is, how can the phenomenon of constraint-based writing be formally represented in an interoperable semantic framework? To answer these two questions, the research started with the study of how domain experts conceptualized literary constraints, the analysis of selected works to explore the granularity and expressiveness needed for data modeling, and the extraction of key conceptual dimensions. The main objective here was to identify data requirements and reference entities for conceptual modeling. Which are these reference entities? Text, agent, creative act, of course, literary constraint, textual relationship, information science, all with the alignment with standards such as LRMO, CDOCRM, PROV, ICO, to try to balance domain-specific needs with standardization and interoperability. Here you can see a first part of the model where the core entities and properties are represented. At the top right, you can see the descriptive layer for textual entities and their metadata. At the top left, the attribution of provenance. And the most, we can say, innovative part of the study is the bottom right, so the consideration of the constraint as a procedural entity influencing the creative act. In this sense, the constraint is described using the class of CDOCRM design or procedure, which is linked to the expression creation through the object property used specific technique. Why? Because, as I said before, the constraint is a technique, a structure, a procedure that is consciously applied for the creation of a work, most of the time literary works. This is a second part of the model, which focuses on the literary constraint, so all the conceptual dimensions of this phenomenon. I can go deeply on it, but I will be happy to answer later to any questions. But for example, you can see that literary constraint can be different types: linguistic, metrical, structural, semantic, visual. They have different degrees of complexity and different operations involved in the text. We saw at the beginning the lipogram, the operation of the lipogram is a subtraction. We'll see soon another operation, which is the displacement. And here we are again with Italo Calvino, who actually was one of the members of the Ulipo, and he was the first author to decide to use semantic constraints in the text, going beyond the formal ones. Here you can see at the left the magic square, il quadrato magico, which is the constraint. The constraint is the fact that each sequence of cards, it forms a story in the collection. Each card can reappear in different stories, so the meaning changes depending on the sequence where the card is. And as you can see here in the model, so we can say that this constraint is semantic because it affects the meaning, the narrative motifs of the stories. There is a iconographic semantic units taken from the tarot cards, and the operation is of course the displacement, because the iconography is translated in narrative themes, in narrative motifs. There are other constraints inside this collection, and at the top of the model you can see the information provenance of a very important scholar here in Bologna, Andrea Battistini, who was one of the first scholars to identify the main constraints inside the collection, and this is one of them. To sum up, the need for a shared classification literary constraint is very important to computationally describe and represent a large amount of literature, not only contemporary, which is underrepresented and needs study. So in the future, first step will be the refinement and expansion of the model, especially the part concerning the textual relationship, one of the reference entities that I mentioned before, because the constraint here is used, as we saw in Dante Alighieri's Inferno, as a device for rewriting a text. I will try to formalize this concept of hypertextuality, so the transformation from a text A to a text B, where the constraint is the main subject of this phenomenon. And of course, the testing of the coherence and the consistency of the model with other case studies. These are my references, and thank you. I hope that I have the time.
You put it in 10 minutes, actually. So, well. Any questions? We have some time for questions. It's early morning, I guess. No questions yet? No. I was wondering when listening to your talk, where do you put the boundary between constraints and the fact that, I think at least, authors constrain themselves anyway? I mean, the way they develop stories, there's millions of ways in which you can develop a story, but usually I think authors have already sort of implicit constraints as well. Would you eventually want to deal with such constraints as well in your model? Can everybody hold hearing without the microphone? Okay.
If I understood the question, the theoretical studies focus very much on the difference between convention and constraints, because, for example, if we divide a text in chapters, this is a constraint. If we write a sonnet, of course, we have to use endecasyllables. So all the literature has constraints. The difference here, and what Oulipian wanted to give new, is the fact that their focus is not anymore to the text, so to the realization of the text, but to how the text is conceived, so to the structure. So the constraint is the protagonist in this sense, and then the text is only a dimension where that constraint is showed. So in the future, I'm starting to insert also the traditional constraint, but trying to differentiate them to these others that were born during the Oulipian movement. Thank you.
Any other questions? No, then I'll suggest that we thank our speaker once more.